Just the name macro scares me.
Well, yes, doesn't it?
What should we talk about now?
Well, I was looking at the topic here called clean code.
Okay.
And I was wondering, I might have my ideas of what clean code. I certainly have my ideas what cluttered code that looks like. But
oh yeah, we've seen a lot of examples of that. Yeah.
But I suppose since you wrote it down here, maybe you have some ideas about this.
Yeah, you always want to write clean code, right? Because when you get back to the code, you don't want code everywhere and cluttered. But the question always remains: what is clean code, and how can you achieve that? And in some cases, even if I've been writing JavaScript for about 15 years now, I still feel that there must be a better way to write JavaScript. I haven't just figured it out yet, kind of. I know that Dataflex has this very structured way of where you place different types of code. Of course, sometimes as a developer, you might have to decide if you want to put it in the view or in the data dictionary, depending on what actions should happen and if they should be global or just local to that view.
You will find, when you look at Dataflex programs, you will find that almost all Dataflex programmers are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the way they write code is the same. I mean, when you've got these other languages like PHP, like JavaScript, it seems to be up to the individual on what standards to make. Yeah. That sometimes makes it very difficult to write other people's code, because whatever they felt for, is the way they write it. The Dataflex standard was put forward a very long time ago by a guy called John Tui, who had some ideas on how to do that. It was called DAF, which is short for Dataflex Application Framework.
Oh, okay.
And that's the way you do it. I mean, that's the way everybody does it. And if somebody begins to step outside, you begin to feel uneasy. You're not comfortable anymore, because why the hell did he want to do that? But it makes it easy for somebody else to overtake your code, to work on with it, because you know immediately where to look for things.
So if you're a Dataflex developer, then you can switch to any other project and you know what you're looking at.
Precisely. Yeah. Precisely.
That is probably not the case in many other languages. Of course, if you're using one of the frameworks will guide you and kind of tell you this is the way we write code in this framework. And that's kind of the good thing of using frameworks. But
I think that's a very good point you have there. But that's maybe one of the strong reasons to use a framework anyway. There might be, of course, ways that it will help you, but surely structuring your code is one very important thing.
Yeah. But if you are a JavaScript developer, for instance, then if you switch between Angular, React, and Vue, those are, even though they are similar and it's JavaScript, they have their different ways of structuring and writing code. So you need to kind of learn every time you get into a new JavaScript framework.
There is a problem here, which is has something to do with it. Ever since human beings began to program computers, there's been a strive, there's been one have been trying to make it into an engineering discipline. Yeah. But now we are in 2020, and it's still something that is a form of black art. That hasn't changed.
No.
And that's one of the reasons why, for instance, when you estimate the cost of a project, it's so difficult. It's also the reason why so many project goes wrong, because you simply cannot tell from the beginning how huge this is going to be.
No.
And one of the things is that everybody uses their own standard.
Yeah. And one of the issues that usually shows up is that the first year you're developing a new project, everything goes speeding fast, and you can fix features and you can add things rapidly. But as time goes and more code are added to the project, it slows down, and you have to do more checks on different files of code to make sure you don't break code somewhere else and stuff like that.
All the happy side effects that you can introduce.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Usually I write comments in the file. I want this function to do this, this, and this. And then I write these as small comments, and then I fill out the code, because then I still know it's a faster flow to write the comments first, so I know what I wanted to do. Then when I write the functionality, I can think a little bit of how do I solve this, and then when I go, I know that, okay, now I need to do this, and now I need to do that. And then I fill it out. But there's a lot of different things that I've learned along the years. Like, if I have one functionality and I need to use that functionality somewhere else, and I feel the urge to kind of copy and paste code, that is a warning signal that tells me, okay, I need to break this out to a separate function so I can call it from both places. So if I need to update it, then I have one place where I should update that code. When you start out, you have the business logic layer, and you have the view layer of the application. And it's really tempting to write some logic in the view layer at some point. But in the end, you will almost always end up needing that in another view as well. So you might as well put it in the business logic from the start, from the get-go.
Well, that's where actually where the one of the things that the Dataflex data dictionary comes in, because you write the code in the data dictionary layer, on the class layer. Of course, you can write it in the object instantiation, but that's when you start to do it in two different views. So you write the same code. You wonder if perhaps you should use or to move that method to the class layer instead of the object layer.
Yeah.
But that's the same as you just said. We had the option, well, we still have actually, but I don't know who actually uses it. That we can write macros.
Just the name macro scares me.
Well, yeah, doesn't it? Because I mean, if you write a macro that replaces maybe 3 lines of code, yeah, or 5, I mean, you should really use that macro a million times before you should consider doing it that way. Otherwise, write the fucking 3 lines, you know, so that people can see, and yourself, by the way, can see what's going on here. Maybe and what the macro does is actually writing those lines for you. It will expand into those lines. So.
But it's also about readability. When you go back to the code a year later, if you look at a code page or a function or a class or what have you, it should make sense when you read it from top to bottom, basically. So if you have higher level concepts in a function, then you should have function calls instead of having like higher and lower level executions in that same function. That's, you know,
one of the thing that really sucks is if you're looking at old code you don't understand, and it happens to be your own,
No, that's one of the things I'm trying to, when I get back to code that I've written a couple of years back, I always try to learn to see if this is readable and understand why do I not understand this when I just look at the code. Can I rewrite this in a way where I understand it? That is probably something I should have done when I first wrote the code and had the functionality in my head to kind of look it over and rewrite it so that it's understandable as well, and put some extra effort into that.
Mm-hmm.
When you write code, do you think about making it cleaner? Is it as a Dataflex developer or automatically clean code when you write it?
As a starting point, it's clean. Now, what happens is that sometimes when you make errors, whatever kind, you know, when you start to debug and you start to try out how the hell do I do this, then your code might not look that neat when you're done with it. And then there's a question of whether you have the time and inclination, you know, to clean it up, which I admit you should do. Sometimes also sometimes we work on projects that we've taken over from other developers. And if you have a function, you know, with 300 lines of code, you know, you're not very happy with changing anything. And not when you start to look at it, and when you finally find out what's going on, you're probably way ahead of it anyway, doing something else. And what I usually say is that when you work with other people's code, it's like cleaning their dirty laundry.
Yeah. It is. But if you have a function with over 300 lines of code, basically you don't want that. So you would like to kind of split it up in smaller functions or objects as well, if that makes sense.
You certainly don't want it, no.
No.
I totally agree with you.
Should we call it today with the clean code concept?
I think we should.
Yeah.
And Charlotte just turned up here, so I'm not alone anymore.
No, okay. I heard someone went in the door.
Well, she sneaked in.